Are you struggling with roadblocks as a woman in the challenging and constantly changing world of corporate America? If you feel stuck in your career, you may be holding yourself back and may not even realize it. Prepare to be enlightened by the meaningful discussions here at the No Woman Left Behind podcast. Each week, gather the insight you need to break down those walls of limiting beliefs. Unleash your full potential and unlock the leader within. Listen to raw conversations with corporate women as they share inspiring stories with the purpose of obtaining their dream career and living a truly fulfilling life. Here's your host, Rosie Zilinskas.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the No Woman Left Behind podcast show. I'm Rosie Zilinskas, your podcast host. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different than what I normally do. So typically I have a guest, but today it's going to be a solo cast, and I plan on doing this a little bit more in 2023. I wanted to share a little bit about my journey this year. This has been a very interesting year for me. I have had massive growth for me personally this year. I left my comfort zone and I started this podcast, which when I rated the types of projects that I wanted to work on, I rated the podcast as number 3 out of like a 3 out of 10. And I had other projects that I thought I would be working on that rated much higher or way higher. And when I decided to work on the project, it was the one at the bottom. So it was the podcast that I started working on. I wanted to challenge myself in the podcast. Being a host for a podcast, putting it all together has been an incredible journey. I also was able to launch my new website. I co-authored a chapter in a book called Engaging Speakers, Voices of Truth, and that was co-authored with about 22 other authors. And that in and of itself was a project. I was also the keynote speaker for the Accounting and Finance Conference last month. And that was super cool because it was a black tie event and I was the featured keynote speaker there. And of course, I delivered my message at various different events. I actually traveled to Colorado Springs. I spoke at the Air Force Academy. I spoke in Erie, Pennsylvania at the Keystone Conference, which is a non-for-profit conference. And all of that was fantastic. I also have been doing a lot of work on a variety of other projects. Now, I just wanted to share with you that I started doing all of this work because I have been in the corporate world for 30 years, and I have seen many women in the corporate world hold themselves back. And I wanted to get the message out there that there are things that you can do to advance in your career. So it's my mission is to eradicate the gender gap in the corporate world by empowering women in their careers so that they can obtain the life they love. And I truly felt that was I had a calling and a duty to give back and serve women in the corporate space, because career development has always been my passion. And when I saw the need to teach women or show women that they were holding themselves back and how they were holding themselves back, things just started, clicking and happening. So it's just one of those things that I had not planned to become an entrepreneur or to actually go out and start talking. It just happened naturally because I'm very passionate about helping women in the corporate world. And everything that I do is truly in the spirit of serving you as my listeners. So the podcast has really become my favorite thing to do out of everything that I'm working on, because it's a way that I can easily support you. And I am also getting great feedback and a lot of support from you back. So thank you all for supporting me and having my back in this project as well. Podcasting has definitely not been easy. It has had its moments. I initially had quite a few challenges, and now I have found my groove. It finally feels right, and I have met incredible women throughout all of the conversations that I've had, and I believe right around 40 episodes at this time. And I want to let you know that many podcasters, they pod fade, which means that they will get to like maybe 10 or 12 episodes and then they just quit because maybe it just wasn't a good fit, or they didn't feel that they could continue, because it is a lot of work to release episodes. I release episodes on a weekly basis. My episodes typically publish on Fridays. And on the following week, I try to feature my guest in social media, because I want to make sure that they are featured as well. But I want to get the word out about my podcast. So it has been a tremendous journey. Again, I've had great conversations, and all the women that have come on my podcast are just incredible women. And I find guests in many different ways. Now, over the last couple of months, I have been having conversations with the women on my podcast, with my guests, and I've noticed that there has been a trend in some of the phrases that we say, or that either they say or I say. And one of the phrases, actually a few of the phrases that keep coming up are, so the first one is, you have to know your worth. Another one is, you have to be clear on what your value is. And then the last one that I hear often is, what do you bring to the table? And when I started hearing the trend of these phrases, something started kind of brewing in my head. I started thinking about, okay, well, do we really articulate what those phrases mean, what they're about? And so I kind of started thinking, it would be really good for me to provide you with some detailed information on what those phrases mean. And so this idea started brewing in my head that we could, number one, that I could do a series of podcast episodes that deal with negotiating skills that address what those phrases mean. And then from there, this idea evolved into a full-fledged project. And the project is now a series of podcasts called How to Negotiate in the Corporate World. And right now, it's pretty much the end of 2022. 2023 is beginning. And this is the perfect time for me to launch my project, because it's definitely a passion project. And what's interesting is that this series of 8 episodes is, again, dedicated to enhance your negotiating skills. But I have, through the conversations that I've had with the guests, I've also been able to determine that there is a method to the madness. There's a process that I have identified, 6 elements in the negotiating process. And the cool part, even, beyond that, is I kind of started just jotting some things down. I created a workbook to go along with these 6 elements. And I started detailing out what each of the elements is about, or what it entails. One of the central elements of the workbook is going to be literally defining know your worth and what that means. And this is this whole workbook, it's still a work in progress, and it's obviously not quite ready to, be put out into the world. So I definitely want you to stay tuned. But this workbook is going to really help you to go through the negotiation process, which will take time to master. But I can guarantee you that you will be pleasantly surprised by the time you get through the process, what you will discover about yourself if you are willing to do the work. And obviously, anything that is worth doing takes time, it takes preparation. If you are a career woman, I want to help you articulate your worth with massive confidence, conviction, and clarity. And that's what this whole series is about. In addition to the workbook, I am compiling a list of powerful phrases that you can use in your negotiation conversation. And those powerful phrases are literally from all of the conversations that I'm having, compiling these key phrases. So, for example, in the corporate world, it's not readily acceptable for a woman to disagree in front of everybody. So one of my guests had said that instead of saying, well, I disagree with you, you can say something like, I don't look at it that way. Let me tell you what I'm thinking. So that is an example of a powerful phrase. That is something that you can say to anybody, and nobody's going to take it aggressive as an aggressive statement or think that you're disagreeing necessarily. But that is definitely an example of a powerful phrase. And this list of powerful phrases will also come into play in the workbook because you are going to need, so one of the elements of the workbook is that once you know what you want, you're going to have to script out what you're going to say to your manager. And so, for example, if you are seeking to get a raise, to increase your compensation because of the work that you're doing, you will be able to know your worth, and you will be able to script it out with these powerful phrases. And I'm going to have you in the workbook, I'm going to recommend for you to physically write out what you're going to say. So use a traditional pen and paper and physically write the statements out, because when you use the physical movement, it kind of flows through your brain and it really internalizes in your brain. It sticks in your brain from that exercise. Once you have your script, if you want to translate it into a Word document, then, better yet. But initially, you're going to actually physically write everything down in a pen and paper. So these phrases are going to be part of what I'm going to offer so that you can have the words that you're going to use to script out your thoughts so that you're not fumbling with what you're going to say. So again, that's one of the elements of the workbook for you to physically script it out. Another element is you're gonna have to practice what you script out. So I'm going to recommend for you to schedule some time with a trusted individual, whether it's a coworker or a friend, and really practice. It's kind of like the hated role playing, but honestly, role playing is a very powerful exercise, because if you can hear yourself physically saying what you are intending to during the actual negotiation, you're going to be able to hone those words or maybe exchange one word for another one. And if you do it with your spouse, your sibling, or a trusted friend, they might be able to give you just one or two words on how to say something better. But it really makes a big difference when you prepare yourself for the conversation. And also, another piece to that is I want you to be prepared in the event that your attempt fails, meaning that they say, oh, no, we're not doing any raises right now. So to counter that, I want you to have a rebuttal ready. And a rebuttal could be like, okay, I hear what you're saying. Can you please help me understand why we don't have raises right now? Or they might say, you're not ready. Okay, I hear what you're saying. Could you help me understand how I'm not ready or what I can do to get ready? And then at the end of that piece of the conversation, you're going to say, thank you for your time. I would like to revisit this again in 3 months. Is it okay if I schedule a meeting? And of course, they're going to say yes, but and then you're going to have to follow up, make sure that you schedule the meeting or schedule a reminder for yourself to actually have the meeting and then revisit the conversation again. Persistence is also another thing that you're going to have to continually do, because the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Preparation is key. You must practice if you genuinely want to articulate your worth with that massive confidence, conviction, and clarity, because you have to hone the confidence, you have to have that conviction, and then you have to be clear on what you're going to ask. So all of that is coming in the first part of 2023. And I'm really excited because, again, this whole the podcast series was, one day I was like, oh, maybe I should just have a series on just negotiating, because all these women negotiate really well. And so that's kind of the first part. The second part was the second part was the phrases first. I thought about, oh, it would be really cool to put together all these phrases. And then the third component actually is the workbook, because I kind of started jotting some things and then it just became a workbook. So it flowed, the whole project just flowed really well, really nicely. So I want to share with you a little bit about some of the episodes that are going to be coming up, because I think it's important for you to have a preview of just a few of the episodes. So we're going to kick off the series with Joy Selden. And Joy Selden is an emotional intelligence master trainer. And she is going to help us understand the emotions that you're feeling behind the negotiation process. So specifically, we're going to talk about how you can regulate your feelings during the conversation, which is definitely a tool for success. This came about because the emotional intelligence that you have about the negotiation process is critical. So what am I talking about? I'm really talking about that anxiety, that fear that you feel when you think about, oh my goodness, I have to go in there and talk about this and have a conversation with my manager. And it's like you feel that instant, anxiety, like a surge of anxiety or a surge of fear. And you're like, oh my gosh, I can never do that. And I want to kind of point out to you that if you tell yourself that you can, or if you tell yourself that you can't, you're always right. And I believe that's a Henry Ford quote, because if you're constantly telling yourself, oh gosh, no, there's no possible way I can go in there and negotiate with my manager, you're right. You're not going to be able to do that. But if you flip that around and you reframe that thought and say, yes, I can go in there and talk to my manager with preparation. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. If you invest time and you prepare yourself, then it's going to be an easy exercise. That anxiety is going to be dissipating, and as well as the fear. And I'm going to talk about the fear in just a little bit more. But Joy talks to us about what you can do, like what physical actions you can do to help you master those emotions, which again, it's the emotional intelligence. How do you master those emotions so that you are successful in regulating your body before you physically enter the negotiation conversation? So that's going to be like the kickoff episode for the series. And I thought it was a perfect episode because, again, I want to make sure that you are emotionally prepared for that conversation with your manager. We're also going to be talking to Alexandra Nicole Nolan, and she is really cool because she's a brand influencer. So she's all over Instagram, and she negotiates daily in her business. She is a mom of 3. She's going to school to obtain her PhD, and she's also running a business. So she is swamped. She's incredibly busy. And I really admire her a lot because it takes a lot. Like, she already got her master's and now she's working on her PhD, and her PhD is in marketing. So she's learning a lot about how women are held back and the different biases in the corporate world. And we talked a lot about how she negotiates in her business and how those same principles can be applied to your career. So I think that episode with Alexandra is going to be really important, because if you're in the corporate world and maybe you're thinking of leaving the corporate world to go start your own business, which has happened a lot lately, or over the course of the pandemic, then you can do this. And that's another key. You need to believe in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, nobody is going to believe in yourself, right? So that's really important. So that's the episode with Alexandra Nicole Nolan. And the last one that I'm going to highlight is Alyssa D. Hecker. So she is an attorney, and once again, she's going to talk about how women negotiate with themselves first before they even get to the conversation with their manager. So you're already discounting your value and your worth before you even walk into the office to talk about your compensation. So we want to avoid negotiating with ourselves first, talking ourselves out of XYZ. So for example, I talked to a woman and she was trying to negotiate, I think she was an entrepreneur, so she was trying to negotiate the rate of whatever she charged for. And in her head, she had one number. And then when she was in front of the individual, she said a lower number. And when she thought about it, she's like, I don't even know why I did that. And in talking to another one of my guests, she said, well, the reason why you did that is because you want to take care of the other person first. So you want the other person to be comfortable. You want the other person to have an easy conversation. So we hold ourselves back, or we give up some of what we want to make the other person comfortable, which it happens all the time, because we as women, a lot of us are perfectionists and people pleasers, and that translates into holding ourselves back for what we want, for our needs and our desires. So Alyssa is going to talk to us more about that aspect. And again, she's an attorney, so she's constantly negotiating as well. And I have several other very accomplished women that will share their knowledge and their expertise about the actions that you can take during the negotiation process once you get there. So a lot of really good stuff, a lot of really good episodes that are going to be coming down the pike. And I'm really excited about this whole process. I really want to encourage you to consider this process as an investment in yourself, because if you are unwilling to take the time to learn this process and get really good at it, again, you're just going to be holding yourself back. And that's not fair to you. My entire brand, my entire No Woman Left Behind brand is dedicated to helping women stop holding themselves back. So it's so important for you to recognize that it's time for you to put your needs and your desires first, whether it's in your career or in your personal life. So here we are. 2022 is now pretty much in our rearview mirror. We are now on the cusp, the beginning of 2023. This is an excellent time for you to begin honing your negotiating skills so that you can push yourself out of your comfort zone. This is also a time that everybody starts talking about, make sure that you write out your goals. And if you don't have written goals out, then pretty much it's not something that's going to happen. People that have written goals are much more successful in whatever the endeavors they have or they want to do than people without written goals. There's been studies about that. It's been proven. So you can also start working on your goals. Now, I kind of wanted to go back and point out one episode that I wanted to highlight. And this is not part of the negotiating series, but it was recently and actually was released on December the 9th. So this episode is with a TEDx speaker. And this TEDx speaker, her name is Kristen Ulmer. And she is fantastic, by the way. She was named like the extreme sportswoman for like 12 years. She's done all kinds of skiing and extreme sports. So she's incredible from that perspective. And her TEDx talk is super cool because she's at the top of a mountain. So she's just amazing. She has a book that is called The Art of Fear. And actually, I have it right here. So this is the book. It's called The Art of Fear. And the reason I bring this book up is because she talks about your emotions, and she says it so eloquently, but she talks about our emotions, your emotions, my emotions. So think of you as a parent, and you have, a bunch of children, and some of your children are named joy, love, happiness, comfort, warmth. So that's like one group of your children that you're always like loving on and accepting and hugging and kissing. And then you have a whole other set of children like fear, anxiety, hate, sadness, just a lot of other ugly, or not ugly, like negative feelings like that. And so her concept is that all of your good children, if you were going to call good and bad children, if you were categorize them that way, all of your good children, you're embracing. And all of your bad children, you kind of want to put them into a basement, lock them up, and kind of pretend that they're not there. So obviously, if the bad children are not seen, not accepted, they themselves are going to start, just acting up and trying to make noise and trying to be heard. And her concept is that fear is one of those children that needs attention, needs love. And so she ultimately says that you need to acknowledge all of those negative feelings, including fear. And so once you are able to embrace the fear, acknowledge the fear, feel the fear, then that fear is going to dissipate and go away. And then once that fear dissipates and goes away, then you can finally move forward and take action with whatever it is that you're trying to do. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because when you think of negotiating as a fearful act that you're gonna take, you need to sit with that feeling. You need to acknowledge that feeling. You need to really feel that feeling and embrace it and let it be. And I think that's really powerful because people are afraid of feeling. We're afraid of trying to uncover all those skeletons in our psyche, in our soul. I was talking to Dr. Andrea Moore recently, and I also interviewed her recently. And she said that sometimes the emotions that you feel come out in your body as chronic pain. And that's because you're not allowing yourself to heal those emotions. So she said, as an example, you might be in your, let's say you're in your early 20s and you're in your 20s and you recently got married and life is good. You're happy with your husband. You might be happy with your job and everything's going well. And then all of a sudden you start feeling all this chronic pain and you don't know what's happening. And what Dr. Moore said is that you feel your body, your psyche now feels safe. And because you're in a good place in your life and you feel safe, now all of a sudden, all this trauma is ready to erupt so that you are able to heal it. And so again, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because your emotions, again, kind of going back to that emotional intelligence, you need to take care of your emotions. You need to acknowledge your emotions. And by acknowledging the fear of negotiating, then you will be able to open up that avenue so that you can powerfully negotiate. So I know that was a lot right there, but those are two really fantastic episodes that you could watch. And again, those are very recent episodes. So what's happening next? So over the next 7 weeks, we are going to be focusing on embracing negotiating as a tool in your toolbox. And I'm 100% certain that you will find great value in this series. So I know I've been talking a lot and it's just, again, it's all me today, but I am going to leave you with 2 actionable tips as I usually do with my guests. Tip number 1, go to my website. My website is nowomanleftbehind.com, and that's woman, WOMAN, nowomanleftbehind.com, and download the Conversation Starter Checklist. And it's free. And the reason why I want you to download this checklist is because this will give you some action items that you need to do when you're ready to schedule your negotiation conversation. So all the stuff that I've been talking about today is all the work that you're going to be doing for the actual conversation. But the Conversation Starter Checklist will kind of give you a before, during, and after checklist of what to do to get ready for that conversation. So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is that if you really want to now work on your career, but you're stuck, send me an email. Email me at rosie@nowomanleftbehind.com to schedule a complimentary 30-minute corporate kickstart consultation. I know that A lot of people may not know where to start or what to do next, or even like why they're stuck. I can help you kind of guide you in the right direction so that you can, kickstart your next step in your career. And then I'm going to leave you with a bonus tip. And the bonus tip is to make time to reflect on what you truly want in your career. Because if you don't know what you want, you can't negotiate for that. You can't have a conversation. You can't even figure out, I can't even help you figure out, how to get to the next step if you don't know what you want. And as a side note to that, I, as a coach, as a career coach, can help you continue to elevate yourself if you're in the type of job that you're happy with. So for example, if you're an accountant and you want to get to a senior accountant job, I can help you figure out how to get there. Now, I know one of my prior guests, her name is Lori Swanson. Lori Swanson is fantastic. She can help you figure out how to get to, if you're an accountant, but maybe you want to be, say, I don't know, like a payroll specialist, or maybe in marketing, something that you're switching from a completely different discipline. Lori can actually help you figure out what you want to do, or what is your calling, basically. So Lori and I have very different perspectives on career coaching. She will help you figure out what to do, and I will help you figure out how to elevate now once you know what to do. So that is your bonus tip, to make sure that you take time to reflect on what you truly want in your career. So again, I hope that you had a great holiday season. We are literally on the cusp of bringing in 2023. I wish you nothing but the best for you and your family. I really do hope that you have a happy new year and a productive 2023. And if you need any help, by all means, please contact me again on my website or my email. So with that, as always, remember, be brave, be bold, and take action.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Let these stories of self-encouragement and professional development serve as a guide in navigating through corporate America in the most practical and fulfilling way possible. Do not forget to subscribe to the show at nowomanleftbehind.com for more content like this. Leave a rating and share it with your friends, because we want to make sure that no woman is left behind. Until I see you next time, remember to be brave, be bold, and take action.